NEPM's podcasts are funded by Armbrook Village Senior Living in Westfield, with support services designed to help seniors age in place, including a Compass Memory Support Neighborhood. More at armbrookvillage.com. The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Northeast Solar, offering solar options, energy security, and solutions for the local community. Learn more at northeast-solar.com.
Welcome to the Fabulous 413. I'm Khalees Smith.
And I'm Monty Belmonte. Later in the show, an event where you can see the stars better out in the hill towns, where Arunah Hill Days will be happening this weekend, giving folks a chance to see the full heavens. And we'll be joined by Jenny Powers from Springfield Museums and Ed Faits, amateur astronomer, to hear why seeing the stars with the lights off is way better.
And our resident astronomer, Hampshire College and Kainat Studios' Salman Hamid is actually not looking up at the cosmos like usual, but instead straight ahead at an artist that arrived in North Adams to talk about his exhibit at Massimoka. We'll get Mr. Universe's take on Usman Khan's road to Hybridabad.
But right now, an especially good time to realize all of those music-making dreams you've been putting off. The Parlor Room Collective has just announced a series of classes for the fall session, and with us to talk about the ways you can learn to do music more, our Parlor Room Collective Executive Director, also the folks behind the brand new Iron Horse, Chris Freeman, who we last had on the show at the grand reopening of the Iron Horse, but who Khalees and I just saw as Fred Schneider from the B-52s at Performance last week. And I was cutting a rug.
It was wicked fun.
Oh, my word. I was on the ground for Rock Lobster. It was so good. Also joining us is the program coordinator for the Parlor Room Collective and a big part of a specific part of these classes that are happening this session, Leo Harrison. Thank you both so much for joining us today to talk about these classes.
Thank you so much.
So at the beginning, for the Parlor Room Collective, how important is it to just have classes for the general public, adults and kids and everybody in between, to just come out and learn to make better music?
It's incredibly important. Our mission at the Parlor Room Collective is to enhance the health and vitality of our community through the power of music. And so that means putting on shows at the Iron Horse. It means putting on shows at the Parlor Room. But it's also, I think the genesis of this was that we have these incredible spaces and we're only using them for some small portion of the day to put it on. So we wanted to make sure that we're using our spaces to fulfill our mission. And so to make sure that we have, with the incredible talent that we have in the Valley, to create basically a breeding ground for ideas to be spread between musicians and artists is a huge part of what we're doing.
And you're working with some amazing musicians who have a long history with either the Parlor Room or the Iron Horse, or both. Modern songwriting techniques with Aaron McKeown, who co-wrote a Broadway musical for alongside Lin-Manuel Miranda's writing partner, which was a beautiful, beautiful musical. And now you can learn modern songwriting techniques with Aaron McKeown starting in the middle of next month. And that's just one of the amazing types of things you can learn here. You can Heather Maloney, who was our guest on Friday's show in anticipation of Arcadia, another working musician from page to stage. Speaking maybe of Broadway musicals there. I don't know. She gave us a little Easter egg on Friday's show that she might be working on something like that.
That's the page that you're writing your lyrics on and then putting them on instruments.
Well, it does say transition from songwriting from the page to the stage. So that could be a stage performance, or maybe it is a we'll have to find out from Heather Maloney, I guess. But it's one of the sessions that you can sign up for. Where do people go if they want to pull a la carte from what the Parlor Room has to offer for people who are interested in learning more about different things, like learning how to play ukulele, for instance?
You can go to parlorroom.org, and at the top there's a link for the Musicians Workshop, which is what we call the educational wing of the Parlor Room Collective. So that has the list of all the classes and some descriptions. There's also scholarships that are available through some partnerships that we have with Amherst Brewing Company to put out the Iron Horse IPA. If you buy the Iron Horse IPA in stores, $1 of every purchase goes towards a scholarship fund for the Musicians Workshop. So if you're worried about whether you have enough money to come to these classes or anything like that, please send us an email and we can figure out scholarships as well.
Yeah, and being a member of the Parlor Room Collective also gets you discounts on some of these classes and events too. So if that's in your wheelhouse and ability, you should look into that as well, because they dovetail really nicely with each other. I want to hear about some of the more specific things that Leo has brought to the perspective of the classes, and why do this vein of things. We're starting with the Uplifting Queer Voices kickoff party, which happens this weekend. So, you can get a jump on any of these musical things that you want to do. But why make specific classes for the queer community through the Parlor Room?
Well, as someone who is a queer and trans BIPOC musician who grew up locally, I've always really noticed a huge gap in terms of programming that is affinity-based for those marginalized groups that I am a part of, and many more. And so I dreamed up some of the ideas that go into Uplifting Queer Voices, and we were able to secure the Music and Action Grant from the Live Music Society to help us with making these workshops possible. And it's really wonderful that we have this opportunity. We have some workshops, including the Gender Affirming Voice Masterclass with Jesse De Silva, who is an instructor at Berkeley. And so that's going to be this fall. We also have DIY marketing basics for musicians specifically to work on building your brand and promoting yourself. And we've got a lot of other options, which you can find out more about at our Uplifting Queer Voices kickoff party this Saturday at the Iron Horse, 7 p.m.
Pretty good to have a class on that. It is the least interesting part of doing music live and in front of people is the marketing part.
and among the most important.
It is.
Yes.
It is. I'm just woefully bad at it.
We're speaking with Leo Harrison and Chris Freeman from the Parlor Room Collective, who are going to launch a series of different educational opportunities this fall, starting off this weekend with some free stuff that'll be happening at the Iron Horse. We mentioned a little bit about the Uplifting Queer Voices kickoff party, which is Saturday. What else is going to be part of that, Leo? Be performances as part of that too?
Yes, that kickoff party is going to feature performances from Lexi Weed, Pamela Means, Sylvie's OK, and a later night drag performance featuring Entity and Magnolia Masquerade as our hosts, plus some other artists. So it's going to be a really great night. I hope to see you all there.
And it's free.
That's free on Saturday. But there's another free thing happening on Friday that harkens back to the heyday of the Iron Horse. The Iron Horse open mic is coming back, and it's starting off this Friday. I think it depends on who you ask, their perspective on the story. If you ask Jim Olson of Signature Sounds, who was one of the founders of the Parlor Room, and the record label and all that, or if you ask singer-songwriter Josh Ritter, I do believe that they found each other through the Iron Horse open mic night, if I am not mistaken. Is there truth to that story?
I heard the story as it being an open mic at Club Passim, but it really very well may have been another open mic at the I Love Club Passim that's in Cambridge, Massachusetts,
Yeah.
and that's one of the nonprofits that we started the Parlor Room Collective in the image of, and the having an Iron Horse open mic I think is incredibly important to our community to make sure that everybody has a chance to get on that stage, share their music, and sort of get that feeling of playing in such a legendary venue. So we've had an open mic at the Parlor Room now for the last year. We have a queer open mic and another open mic that both happen weekly, and then we both happen monthly. And now this one at the Iron Horse, we're really excited to kind of really do it really big, get a lot of people, and make sure that as many people have a chance to play on that stage as possible.
And it seems like it's about, at least this first semester, I'm going to call it, since we're getting back into the school year and it goes through, the calendar listing goes through December, like about
and
twice.
These are classes. So.
Yeah, twice a month that these open mics are going to be happening. And those are free too, right? So how do people sign up if they want to perform at the open mics, Leo?
Yes, so similarly to some of our other offerings, you can sign up online at parlorroom.org, or you can come to the door. A lot of that open mic feel is useful to have a sign up at the door. So you can sign up at a slot for any of the open mics at the door, and you can also buy tickets in advance.
I want to talk about...
But it's free.
Oh,
But it's free, yeah.
It's free. Yay. I want to talk about this thing that I've mentioned before, but I love the concept, and I just want to talk about it more because it's such a cool thing, is the songwriter speed dating, which... explain the concept because I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, we had it for the first time right around Valentine's Day this past year. But essentially, it's the idea of getting a bunch of songwriters who are interested. The only prerequisite is you're a songwriter who is interested in working with other songwriters. So we don't care what genre you think you write in or what instruments you play or anything like that. We get everybody together and we give everybody 5 minutes to say, this is who I am as a songwriter. And you get to see who everyone else is, and then you go around and we have little tables where you can just talk it through. And the idea is we've had some pretty incredible songwriting teams over the last 100 years in this great world, and maybe the next Lennon and McCartney is right here in Northampton, and we're looking to just make sure that people realize that there are like-minded people, and even if you're sitting in your bedroom with your ukulele writing sad songs, someone else might be doing that a few doors over, and the Parlor Room is a place where we try to bring those people together.
That's Chris Freeman, the Executive Director of the Parlor Room, DBA as the Iron Horse this time as well. And speaking of collaborative songwriting, are you the Leo of Leo and Indy that's hosting a collaborative songwriting session?
I am indeed.
Nice. We had Indy on just last week about stuff for performance, where we mentioned that Chris Freeman was the B-52s.
And their awesomely named band Conversion Therapy.
Yes. It gave me a little chill to say that on the air. But Leo and Indy, you're going to be exploring. Do you write with collaboratively with Indy or with other people? And
yes.
Tell us about that session.
Yes, Indy and I have actually been writing collaboratively since we were in high school. We went to Northampton High School together years ago, and we've kind of had a lot of time to develop different techniques of songwriting and play around with different styles and different, songwriting generation, exercises. And so I think we've developed a kind of open-ended, unique approach to collaborative songwriting with people that you've never met before. And this is also a specifically BIPOC, queer and trans BIPOC affinity group for songwriting. So if you know any queer and trans BIPOC songwriters who would love to meet some new collaborators and work on a song together, please send them to the Parlor Room at parlorroom.org.
We're talking about the Parlor Room's fall session of classes that are available for people to learn about all sorts of different things, from if you want to take a vocal master class to learn how to play the ukulele.
Or even if you want to learn to play Grateful Dead songs.
On the acoustic guitar, that's what I was about to talk about right now. Do you have to tune it poorly and then just noodle around on it? Is that how that session's going to go?
It's a 9-hour-long class.
Oh, my God.
I always make fun of the Grateful Dead on this show. I should ease up on it. But yes, I don't want to cast aspersions to whomever is teaching how to play a Grateful Dead song on acoustic.
So that's a great example of one of the classes that is in kind of coordinates with the visiting artists that are coming through. So that's Jeffrey Pepper Rogers and Jefferson Hamer, Jefferson Hamer is an absolutely unbelievable folk singer-songwriter. He's in the Murphy Beds. He did an incredible child ballads record with Anais Mitchell back in, I think, 2010 or 11. But they're there the night before doing this kind of acoustic Grateful Dead show, which does really well at the Parlor Room. It sold out last year. And then the next morning, they kind of put on this class so you can go see the show the night before, kind of get a feel for what it's going to be, and then go learn how to be a part of it.
Very cool. Even if it's, I can't keep casting.
We're going to be nice.
Either. We're going to be nice
about the Grateful Dead. People like what they like, and that's important. The Parlor Room kicks off with these sessions that'll go throughout the rest of the fall and into December this Friday with the return of the Iron Horse open mic. It will be at the Iron Horse. It's free. People can sign up, and there will be a special session focused on uplifting queer voices and fostering a safe space for creativity at this particular free event at the open mic session on Friday. And then the next night as well, uplifting queer voices kickoff party with all sorts of great music and drag and fun. It's a free way this weekend to get back into that venue if you haven't been in there again since it reopened in May. Just briefly, Chris, how's it all been going with the Iron Horse? It's like there's stuff there every single night practically, it seems.
Yeah, pretty much. We've had, probably We've had dozens and dozens of shows since May. I don't know how many exactly, but we're there a lot, and it's going really great. We have a great team that's cooking up some amazing food in the back. We have a great bar there with Neil Robinson, who's been GMing the Iron Horse for so many years, is back there. So
it's nice to have that familiar face when you walk in. It makes it feel like the old times, except a lot cleaner and better bathrooms.
Right? Yeah, there are new bathrooms that have been moved upstairs, a whole new bar area to expand the handicap accessible space by over 1,200 square feet. It's been a really, it's still just amazing each night to see people who are always coming in for the first time, again, and getting to kind of both live in the past again in this kind of refreshed way. It still feels like every night we get to emerge from COVID again, and so it's pretty powerful.
Leo, for you, in respect to the Iron Horse reopening and the Parlor Room getting a little bit of momentum from there, what's it been like solidifying the queer perspective within this collective?
It has been really, really wonderful. Especially with all of the momentum of the opening. I feel like that's given us a lot of unique opportunities to bring this programming into light. We have a lot of our mission of this program is to provide robust support to queer and trans BIPOC musicians and community members through the programs, the workshops, performance opportunities, and development initiatives. And I am really, really excited to see, especially this fall, as students are coming back into town for college, I'm really excited to see some of that engagement from our community.
I also have to commend you on some of the names of these classes. Oh Lord, Poetry Pals is inspired. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was Ella Alkowitz, who's our instructor for that one. And that is also a BIPOC affinity group. So it's going to be really wonderful.
That is Leo Harrison, who's one of the programming coordinators for the Parlor Room Collective. We've also been joined by the Executive Director of the Parlor Room Collective, Chris Freeman, who are still operating in the Parlor Room and also operating the Iron Horse. It's the Parlor Room Collective's Musicians Workshop Fall 2024 schedule of classes to help broaden your mind, your perspective, and your talents. And you can come to the Iron Horse open mic for free this Friday, or go to the Uplifting Queer Voices kickoff party for free this Saturday at the Iron Horse.
And currently the schedule has classes through December 7th, so lots for you to choose from.
Thank you both for coming in.
Thanks for having us.
Coming up, dark skies make for better stargazing, and in Cummington, you'll get an opportunity to do just that. We'll talk with Jenny Powers and Ed Faits about Arunah Hill days.
But up next, we'll take Mr. Universe out of his academic comfort zone and put him on the road to Hybridabad at Mass MoCA.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by the UMass 5 College Credit Union, offering Co-op Advantage checking with cash back on all purchases, plus secure debit card controls, all from the UMass 5 mobile banking app. Insured by NCUA, umass5.coop. NEPM's podcasts are funded by Armbrook Village Senior Living in Westfield, with support services designed to help seniors age in place, including a Compass Memory Support Neighborhood. More at armbrookvillage.com.
To boldly go where no man has gone before.
Hampshire College astronomer Dr. Salman Hamid, Mr. Universe, here at your Amherst kitchen table. We're kind of giving you the day off from astronomy because we've got somebody from the Springfield Museums and an amateur astronomer talking about Arunah Hill days and the dark skies thing they're doing in Cummington so that you can go and do your own amateur astronomy. So we'll let you take a break from talking about the wide universe for the moment, and you're going to dial it down to something that you went to go experience in the North County of the Berkshires at Mass MoCA in North Adams.
That's right, and I should mention, it's not really a break because this Exhibit A was phenomenal.
Out of this world.
There were elements of it that were out of this world, literally. And the other thing is that there was a lot of great aspects of technology, science, and fantasy. So I would love to talk about this particular exhibit that just opened at Mass MoCA.
And you went to the artist talk back there yesterday. Tell us the name of the exhibit and the artist.
So the artist is Usman Khan, and the exhibit is Road to Hybridabad. The name, as you may start to venture, it's a South Asian name. So he actually was born in Pakistan, but grew up in New York City.
You were born in Pakistan, but didn't quite grow up here in the United States, but practically since 18, right?
Yeah, but I did grow up, and this is in quotations, like, I really grew up here in the United States. And so Usman Khan, he's a professor at University of Michigan, and he lives in the Detroit area. This particular exhibit is about migrant identity and how you navigate that, especially with technology playing an increasing role in our lives. Mm-hmm. It seems like he loves folktales, and folktales like the Arabian Nights or 1001 Nights. And so there are a lot of elements of that, but also other Persian folktales. But then he also brings up movies in the West, because those are also, and a lot of them are using those kind of elements. For example, jinns. Like, so people are familiar with Aladdin.
Genies, some people call them.
Genies, right, exactly. Yeah. So
if you're not familiar with the word jinn. Although we actually asked the word nerd about this, and she wasn't able to find it. And when people say, are you going to gin up an idea? Does it have to do with jinn the genie? Does it have to do with jinn the spirit? Is there any connection? We haven't gotten there yet. She hasn't figured it out, but that's a listener question that we're still ruminating on.
All that maybe with gin and tonic. So anyway, so he is looking at how identity and everybody's identities are related to the stories they tell. Mm-hmm. And of course, with immigrant identities, they have their culture and stories that are bringing in. But then how are they impacted and incorporated in with technologies? So he has actually quite a bit of a critique of colonial context, because these kind of folktales and identities and things like that have also been appropriated within the colonial context, and he is in some ways critiquing that particular aspect. So one of the things, for example, like, that he has a script of Aladdin in there, although we would call it Aladdin, but if people are familiar with that, I mean, it's a deeply problematic narrative with the original Aladdin that it came out, the one in 1990s, especially one of the songs that was in there.
The Disney one.
The Disney one.
So even the story of Aladdin or Aladdin and the Lamp, that's not even in the original, is it? The 1001 Nights? I heard that like the oldest known copy they have of it, it's not even a part of it.
Actually, there is actually a description about that, like sort of like, that where does Aladdin come in? But it has been told many times.
There's 1001 of them, so it's easy to take one out and put one in without even anybody noticing.
That's right. And one other thing that I should mention about this exhibit, which you should check out because it is big and there is a lot of elements in it. Mm-hmm. But the name of it is Road to Hybridabad. Now, it is a play on two cities. One is in Pakistan and one is in India, and which is Hyderabad. And one of us on this table, by the way, was born in Hyderabad in Pakistan. And I'm not going to reveal who it was. So this is a play on that. And also he mentioned sort of like, a lot of the movies in the 50s and 60s, Road to Zanzibar, Road to Rio, and things like that. So
and he wrote it, he stylizes it Hybrid Abad.
Right, that's exactly right.
Hyderabad, Hybrid Abad, which is really cool.
Right. And so a couple of things that I want to highlight. I mean, it's also very funny. I think the exhibit is funny as well. But if you go towards the front end of it, there is a giant head that is there. And that head is designed after Radcliffe. And Radcliffe was the British colonial lawyer who actually drew the lines of partition in the 1940s between Pakistan and India. Mm-hmm. And he's infamous because famously, he did that in, I think, a few weeks without ever visiting or caring for what is the situation on the ground. Meaning to say, he was drawing these boundaries between two big countries that are going to happen without looking at it that his pen that is going through the map, how is it going to end up on the ground dividing communities? That is one of the reasons why the partition of India and Pakistan ended up with killings of millions of people, and millions of people actually going from displaced from one place to another.
Including your family.
Including my family, because my father's family, for example, they actually thought that they will be safely in one part, but it turns out actually the way the pen went They ended up in the other side of it, and then they had to go. My mom's family actually was 3 miles on the other side, so they also became refugees. And that happened on both sides. And then, of course, there were a lot of repercussions. So Radcliffe actually is somebody who's not really, from history perspective, is not looked kindly upon. And I think that is a justified thing. And his callousness. And that is, again, the colonial callousness, that they didn't care. So that's the other part of it.
So there's a giant head of Radcliffe in this exhibit? Is it like to punch it or something?
No,
like that?
well, that would have been interesting too. No, because he's a border agent.
Oh.
And he is the one who is guarding, to get into the main hall, he is guarding the entrance. And you have to come up with a password to go in. And it's a tin telephone that you have to say, and then he responds to it, and whether it would open up or not, and the whole face actually lifts up if you have the right password, and you can go through. And the password also, you can actually find, there is a code to it where you can find that, but those are also questions that are in naturalization tests for the United States. So that is one of the passwords. Because it's not just about the Pakistan and India border, but the exhibit also deals with immigrants that are coming in, and also the technology that mediates that, because you have facial recognition, you have other questioning, that you have this authority that comes in, which decides basically your future to a certain degree, whether you can enter or not. And once you come in, you have this hall of the jinn or genies, and one of my favorite exhibits, there is a Apollo 11 lander, and on top of it is a depiction of a hybrid flying horse. This is called Buraq, and within the Islamic context, this was the horse that took Prophet Muhammad first from Mecca in the same night to Jerusalem, and from Jerusalem he was given the right to the heavens. So it has a deep importance to that, but it also is going to Jerusalem, especially within the current context as well. And one of the reasons why Jerusalem is also considered holy for Muslims as well. And here you have this particular depiction of this horse, Buraq. It has a woman's face on it. And then underneath, it's sitting on top of Apollo 11 lander. I mean, in some sense, technology going to the heavens. And that is the farthest, in some sense, where technology has gone. But again, I loved the small touches, because there is also a coin-operated thing, and you can actually put a coin in, and the horse go back and forth,
like those little horses out
like
in front
those
of
little
grocery
horses.
stores.
Exactly. So that is there. The other thing in that particular hall, I mean, you will see these telephone poles in there with sort of like, those sneakers hanging in from there, which is something that you see in the urban landscape, although you can also see in Amherst and Northampton.
Yeah, my dad's neighborhood in Boston, I remember as a kid driving through there, I always had sneakers up on those lines.
And that has a commentary on a particular Persian folktale about the conference of the birds, because there is one other bird on a pole, and these sneakers are Air Jordan. And so those are the things that are in there. So there is a lot more stuff. But what I want to point out in that particular hall is that there are also flying carpets. And those flying carpets are actually in a cage, which is like roughly designed like a Taj Mahal, very roughly, okay? But they're inside a cage. And these carpets, so you can imagine sort of like, what it would be today. And these carpets have drones. So these drones let them actually float in it.
So these carpets really are flying at Matsumoto, like with the drones?
They float a little bit, but they're in a cage. And one of the things that Usman Khan talks about is one of the inspirations for this particular exhibit. It's Arthur C. Clarke's famous thing, like, that any technology that is sufficiently advanced would be indistinguishable from magic. And so this is one of those things that, well, you think in terms of flying carpets, but here, you can think about it from drones that you can make the carpet fly. He actually mentioned, why are they in a cage? And he talked about that if you think about drones, I mean, they've been pretty much killing machines.
Yeah.
That has been their use. And so he wants for us to think about that technology like that should be caged and should not be let outside going into the killing fields. And so that was the Hall of the Jinns. And then if you go out from there, there is a wall that actually goes through the central area of the exhibit. And that wall, you can think about a border wall, but actually it is the wall of the West Bank. And that is also dividing some parts of the exhibit with the other. But there is a truck on one side of it, which has a lot of speakers. and they have this droning hum music that is going on, because for resistance or for other reasons too, that you cannot contain these voices that come from the other side, and they are the ones that can break the wall. And so it is about migrants trying to come across the wall for various reasons. He also has a burning boat, a picture of a burning boat over there, although it would have been cool actually if it was a burning boat, but there's a picture of a burning boat because that burning boat represented Muslim armies up in the 8th century. They went from Morocco into Spain, southern Spain, which later became Andalus and Granada and all of that civilization.
Cordoba, where I was back in May.
But the first time they went over there, the famous story is of the general whose name was Tariq bin Ziyad. And I'll tell you in a second why this name, if you're not familiar with that, you actually are in some ways, because Tariq bin Ziyad led the army, and when he went across to Spain, he burned the boat behind him. And so the idea was, well, hey, you kind of don't have a choice except to go ahead. And they won, and so that's the reason how Muslim presence came in there. But in honor of his victory, the general, they named the mountain over there the Mountain of Tariq. Or in Arabic, it was called Jablul Tariq, which became Gibraltar.
Ah.
Okay, so Gibraltar actually is the Mountain of Tariq. But what Usman Khan wants to point out is, like, a lot of them migrants, refugees, they are crossing the same oceans. They are crossing these vast landscapes. It could be in the North American context as well. And they are also, in some ways, they burn their boat. It's a critique of that sometimes when you get to the other place, it turns out, it wasn't all, that great. And so it has a depiction of that in particular. It looks like the land of milk and honey, and there is a water fountain which actually has milk and honey coming out of it.
Wow.
So there is a critique of the culture that we live in. You have a lot of processed foods, there is a commentary on dairy, so milk in that context, and a cow is there because there is the cows everywhere here. It's also holy for Brahmins in India, but also the golden calf within the biblical story. So those are all part of that context. And there is Scheherazade. She was the person who was reading stories in 1001 Nights, except here, it's a little robot sitting there, and that uses generative AI to create a story and actually interact with the person that is sitting there. But it has been trained on data of refugee stories, and it tells a story to you.
And it just opened at Mass MoCA in North Adams. It's called Road to Hybridabad by Usman Khan.
Usman Khan. And as you have mentioned, Monty, many times, I also have a channel for astronomy for audience in South Asia. And I plan on interviewing Usman Khan in Urdu with English subtitles. Okay. So it's going to be just like a foreign film. But we're going to talk about that because there are a lot of, to me, the other pleasure of that was there are a lot of references that are not just from the Arabian Nights, but how Arabian Nights get interpreted in South Asia, which has its own particular twist to that. And then somebody who moves from South Asia to the US, how those stories actually play a role in there. So it's a really rich exhibit, and Mass MoCA is always a pleasure. I mean, and this was just the one exhibit that I really spent time on. And I've been meaning to go and see Laurie Anderson's Who Owns the Moon, which we are going to talk about at some point, but I didn't get a chance.
You have to sign up in advance for that one. It gets booked out so quick.
I know, and that's a whole other story about that. But go and see Road to Hybridabad. It's a deep, thoughtful portrayal of migrant experiences, immigration, colonialism, and the role that science and technology plays both for the good and for the bad.
Up next, dark skies make for great stargazing.
Provided the clouds don't get in the way.
Always a possibility. But we'll hear from Jenny Powers and Ed Faits about the many ways you can interact with the cosmos at Arunah Hill Days next.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
NEPM's podcasts are funded by Armbrook Village Senior Living in Westfield, with support services designed to help seniors age in place, including a Compass Memory Support Neighborhood. More at armbrookvillage.com.
Welcome back to the Fabulous 413. I'm Madonna. Oh, no, wait. I'm Monty Belmonte.
And I'm Khalees Smith. This weekend for your stargazing pleasure, it's Arunah Hill Days. Wait, start time... It's like daytime stargazing?
Arunah Hill Days is what it's called. So technically stars are out all the time. But the Arunah Hill Natural Science Center in Cummington will host a family-oriented weekend of astronomy, stargazing, nature walks, and science education this weekend, August 30th through September 1st.
Several large telescopes will be available for nightly viewing of Jupiter, Saturn, galaxies, star clusters, and other wonders of the summer Milky Way. Experienced amateur astronomers will conduct nightly constellation orientation walks.
And specifically filtered solar telescopes will also be used during daylight hours to reveal sunspots and solar prominences. Now it all makes sense.
Aha! Joining us is Jenny Powers, director of the Springfield Science Museum and a member of Arunah Hill.
We are also joined by experienced amateur astronomer Ed Faits.
I'm sorry, it's catching.
Yeah, right? Ed, Jenny's been on the show before, and we talked a lot about stargazing with the music of Taylor Swift, which is something that the Springfield Museums was doing and may do again if Taylor Swift drops another Taylor's version, so I hear. But tell us about what you do in your professional life if you're an experienced amateur astronomer.
Well, my professional life, right now I do marketing for a disc golf course. And I do marketing for Arunah Hill. I don't get paid for any of it. I'm actually a retired computer programmer.
Oh, okay.
So for the last 3 years, I get to pursue my passions and spend time
marketing,
stargazing, and throwing frisbees in the woods.
And Mars. Tell us about what got you into astronomy.
I remember very clearly, I was about 6 years old, and there was an eclipse of the moon. And it happened at 10 or 11 o'clock at night. And the next-door neighbor kids that were a little older than me got to sleep out. And they had a shed with a flat roof, and they got to sleep on the roof and stay up all night and see the partial eclipse or total eclipse of the moon. And my parents would not let me do that. So I think I've been spending the rest of my life making up for that, chasing eclipses both of the sun and the moon and looking at the night sky every chance I get.
So astronomy is rebellion for you. I got an earring because my parents wouldn't let me get one until I was 18, but you got a telescope, I guess.
I guess that's the way I went, right?
That's beautiful.
I love it.
Science as rebellion. We're for it.
I'm all for that. That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It is a bit submersive to do astronomy education.
But it's also wonderful to bring people out when it's extra dark to see all of the things that you've been talking about. Jenny Powers, talk to us about what Arunah Hill is and why it does this.
Well, Ed is the expert, but at Arunah Hill, they're providing a space where people can go out under a dark sky. I live in the city like so many of us do, and I can see a fair amount of stars from my yard, but the amount that I can see at Arunah Hill is just far, far and away more. And so if you love doing stargazing, if you want to do challenge lists like the Messier list, you're not going to be able to do it from Springfield or Holyoke or Chicopee. You've got to go out someplace with a dark sky, and that's Cummington. And then once you get up there, it's this beautiful space with hiking trails and telescopes that you can use if you don't want to drag your own up there. I'm still learning to use my latest one, so I do want to drag it up there. But getting to look at the moon through a telescope that's over 100 years old is a pretty special experience. And so the other thing that I really love that they do at Arunah Hill is rockets. And my son and I got to do rockets for the first time when we went to their Star Watch program, which is where they train you how to use everything that's up there at the site and encourage you to do a lot of volunteering as well. And so setting off rockets is not really something we can do in the city very easily. It's a little...
I think you might be asking for trouble.
And that might get me fired on the quadrangle. But getting to experience that was something, I have an adult son, he's 21 years old, but he loved that. He just thought it was fantastic. And that inspired us so much that we're going on and doing rocket programs in a couple other places, specifically for organizations that serve girls. So it's a pretty special place, pretty magical, and you can camp up there too. And I'm a big time camper, so knowing I could just drive up there and look through this gorgeous telescope and then spend the night and do whatever just whatever I like up there, it's really just a fantastic resource. So affordable and not that far away.
So in some small ways, we're taking Ed's dream and making it everybody's dream, where you get to spend your time flat on your back underneath the stars, regardless of what your parents say.
Staying up late.
Exactly. Well, and I think so Ed is a real gift to our community when it comes to astronomy education. He does so much outreach. He's a gift to the museum also. Thank you, Ed. But I think this is kind of sharing Ed's dream with everyone. He wants everyone to have this opportunity. And I really look at astronomy as a gateway science. And so if Ed can get you up there and excited about science, you're going to come back and you're going to want to know even more. So
Well, think of how many people probably witnessed the total solar eclipse in the path of totality, which was not far from here. I love going back and listening to the clip of us experiencing the eclipse where we just scream at the top of our lungs. It was this visceral human reaction, like unlike anything I've ever really experienced. I'm sure that both of you had a good time as astronomers and amateur astronomers with the total solar eclipse. Did you go to the path of totality, both of you? Jenny?
Yes, not together. We went to two different spaces, but I did go with a bunch of other people from the Springfield Stars Club. We went to Vermont, and we changed our plans at the last minute, so there was no place to stay. So we stayed in a barn next to the inn.
Wow.
It was a biblical experience. And what was really funny is there were just a few of us from the club, but everybody there was in the inn was there to experience the eclipse as well, but there were no other experts. And so people were crowding around us and just more people kept coming. And also because of the unpredictable weather, a bunch of people kind of came as refugees from other sites where they were supposed to be. And so we had quite a big crowd. And that was my first total solar eclipse. And it will not be my last. I am planning a trip to Egypt for 2027.
That's amazing.
Where there will be a 7-minute eclipse. It's happening. It is happening. It was so otherworldly and beautiful that I think anybody who can get that opportunity to go see one should.
Tell us a little bit about your eclipse experience, Ed.
This was my third total eclipse. My first one was in '98 on the island of Aruba. My wife and I went, gave our kids the option. The kids were junior high age at the time, and they chose to stay home with grandma.
They were wrong.
Go to the eclipse.
They were wrong.
However, in 2017, I sprung to get the whole family into a cottage in the middle of Missouri to see the total eclipse. And we had a wonderful view. We had a wonderful time. And this year I was really proud. My son called about 6 months before the eclipse and said, we've arranged a bed and breakfast near Indiana University on the center line of the eclipse. We're all going.
Nice.
So they arranged it, they organized it, and my son even paid for it. So I got off easy this year. And we had a spectacular. So I'm 3 for 3 on clear, beautiful skies.
It is a gateway science drug, this astronomy, and especially when something presents itself in such an incredible way, like a total solar eclipse. It's pretty amazing. But I want to hear in just a little bit about what we can actually see in Cummington on normal dark nights under clear skies, like we have our fingers crossed will be this Friday and Saturday for Arunah Hill Days. Coming up a little more with Jenny Powers, the director of the Springfield Science Museum and a member of Arunah Hill, as well as the experienced amateur astronomer Ed Faits.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM. Welcome back to the Fabulous 413. We are with Jenny Powers of Springfield Museums and Ed Faits, who are both of Arunah Hill Days and the organization Arunah Hill. And they are having Arunah Hill Days this weekend. Goodness, up in Cummington, where the skies are dark so you can see all the stars. And we keep throwing around the term dark skies, but Ed Faits, can you explain what dark skies is as a movement and why it's important to Arunah Hill and what they do?
Sure. For those of us who live in the lower Pioneer Valley around Springfield, we are street lights, mall lights, everything is pretty hard. They overwhelm the stars. However, up in Cummington, we have 100 acres of land. It's a half-a-mile driveway, dirt road driveway, off a dirt road street. So we're about as remote as you can get in western Massachusetts. So once you get up there, you're miles from the nearest street light. And this time of the year, the end of summer, is particularly nice because the summer Milky Way, after sunset, is lined up just straight north to south. So there's all kinds of galaxies, nebula, double stars, things to see. Saturn and Jupiter will be rising right after sunset. It'll be a particularly nice time. And you never know what surprise things you'll get. We have Elon Musk satellites flying overhead, which are both wondrous to see and a little scary.
Yes.
The light pollution they cause when you're trying to do astrophotography. And there's always, even though we're not in a meteor shower, there's always a chance to see stray meteors while you're in Arunah Hill. And I always tell people, always look up. Don't just stand there. If you're not looking through a telescope, at least be looking up, because you never know what you're going to see.
There's still more things that you can see with the naked eye, even though like you don't have tools to work with. So yeah, of course you should be looking up. Why else go out into the woods like this?
So we'll have about a dozen, maybe 20 telescopes if it's clear, set up of various sizes. Some will do a great job at showing star clusters or galaxies. But yeah, binoculars are just the naked eye, especially that cloud that's the Milky Way. So people who come from the city and see dark skies for the first time, I always wonder what that cloud is, and that's the stars of our own Milky Way galaxy.
It really is phenomenal. The very first time I had a real dark skies experience was on Monhegan Island off the coast of Maine, which is very dark skies, and I brought my whole family outside, and they'd be like, oh, there's a shooting star, there's a shooting star. I was like, those are common. Those are basic. They're happening all the time. But to be able to see that band of the cloud of the Milky Way, the outer rim of our own galaxy, with your naked eyes, it really is mind-boggling. And the kids were asking, like, why doesn't that cloud move? I'm like, well, technically it's moving, but it doesn't look like it's moving because it's not a cloud. It's the Milky Way itself. It's taking a look at ourselves. It's really spellbinding.
That's worth going up for by itself without all the other things. The first time I ever saw the Milky Way, I was absolutely blown away. My mom had told me all my childhood it was this thin cloud that turned out was really a cloud and not the Milky Way. If you want to go to Arunah Hill Days just to see that, it is worth it.
Absolutely.
And if you get a spectacular night, you get the white Milky Way glow, but you also see the dark lanes. It's the dust in the Milky Way, kind of that adds structure to that white cloud that runs from the southern horizon all the way to the northern horizon.
Cool. But you don't have to just like look up and look through telescopes. You have classes going on at this time too. Talk to us about some of the things that you can learn with specific people at Arunah Hill Days.
Well, I wouldn't say there's actual classes. We do have speakers. We have 2 speakers each night, and then we have a real special person, one of Jenny's museum employees, who's going to do a planetarium show with a green laser under the real sky.
Whoa! Yes. So when you go to the planetarium at the Springfield Museums, it's a projection, but this is the real deal.
This is the real deal, and she knows every star out there, and she knows a lot of the folklore and mythology behind it. So she's just fascinating when she starts talking about different constellations and how they evolved and what their meaning is in culture. But we also have speakers each night, and both nights we have award-winning photographers. On Friday night, we got a local guy out of Westfield who does waterfalls and barn owls and nightscapes of the Milky Way. And on Saturday night, we got a retired epidemiologist who actually worked on the COVID vaccine for one of the pharmaceuticals. And she does ancient light. And what she's doing is these long, like hours-long exposures of these galaxies and star clusters. And she does a real artistic rendering of it. It's just absolutely beautiful photography.
That's wicked cool.
It is. All this happening right in our backyards in Cummington this Friday and Saturday for Arunah Hill Days. Is it something that people need to sign up for in advance? Is it free and open to the public? Or if people want to go do this in Cummington on Arunah Hill this weekend, how do they get involved?
It's free. Anybody can just show up. We do charge $10 for anybody parking up on the hill.
An outrage! No, I'm just kidding. It seems very reasonable.
If you want to park at the bottom of the hill where there's a lot more space and walk up, you can do it all for free.
That's kind of cheapskate I am.
Some people don't want to lug their telescope all the way up the hill. It's understandable.
Yeah. Kids up there Saturday afternoon get to build their own rocket and launch their own rocket. We have nature walks, all kinds of things. And if it's cloudy, we do really bad science fiction theater.
Yes. What is this? Is this like Mystery Science Theater? Like you're going to watch a movie that's really bad?
It's a little like that. I think we had to retire Zsa Zsa Gabor's Queen of Outer Space. It's a 1958 movie, and it's just too terrible to to
As
even
someone
waste an
who is a
hour on.
huge fan of bad movies and bad things in general,
Same.
I'm kind of secretly rooting that there's at least one cloudy night where you're forced to do this really bad science.
Or maybe we can get you to do this outside of Arunah Hill Days, regardless, because it sounds really fascinating, and
We
I'd come
have a
regardless.
theater at the museum.
Just saying.
And if people want to be, we keep saying you're members of Arunah Hill. If that's something that's interesting to people, how could I become a member and support the work that's going on there?
Sure. It's just membership is only $30 a year. You get to use the site anytime you want. We ask people to push a lawnmower around like one afternoon a year to help maintain the property. But just showing up at our events like Arunah Hill Days, you pay the $30, you're a member, and hopefully you become an active member.
And then you can go throughout other times of the year and use the telescopes there?
And bring all your friends up. Yes.
Wow.
And to some of your events not on Arunah Hill, I was looking at your schedule, and you've got one with Trustees of Reservations, who we talked with before. That's not in Cummington; it's in Windsor. So there's lots of places to go and interact with your organization.
Amateur astronomers seem, as a group, very, very passionate about sharing their love for this. And so you can find amateur astronomers throughout the valley sharing this love.
Yay.
I love it.
That's
Ed,
wonderful.
Yeah, you're inspiring me, Ed, now to go get my own. I had a telescope as a kid, too, and I went to space camp, so all this stuff of amateur astronomy and looking at the stars, it's part of the reason why we have an astronomer on every week. Mm-hmm. But you can go hang out with the other amateur astronomers this weekend, Friday and Saturday, Arunah Hill in Cummington. It's Arunah Hill Days. We've been joined by two members of Arunah Hill, Jenny Powers, who's also the director of the Springfield Science Museum, and amateur astronomer Ed Faits. Thank you so much. Tomorrow on the Fabulous 413, we say goodbye to our good buddy Phil Corman, who's the executive director at CISA, Community Involved in Sustaining Agriculture. He is retiring this week.
So we'll gather up a bunch of folks who appreciate him and all he's done for the past 16 years, including Mike Wisman of Warner Farm, Kat Cheng of Reed Farm, and we'll accompany Phil on a stop at Congressman Jim McGovern's annual farm tour.
We leave you with They Might Be Giants, singing about what is not a shooting star.
It's called a meteorite.